Before his death, the teacher left him a covenant and a sword. This gift became the beginning of a path that determined his entire fate. His days passed in training and battles. He missed out on moments of happiness and simple joys. He was the son of a woman who destroyed someone else's clan and should be grateful they didn't kick him out. The Tonrei family from Hylene, a celebrated house of poisons and hidden weapons, had fallen. One of the forces, Remer, destroyed 9 of its sects. If John, the demon slayer, liked the woman, he'd propose marriage or take her by force. Coming once to Hylene to claim his beloved, the demon ruler of heavenly radiance, the poisonous phoenix, lost in battle. In this fight, the Tonrei family spent all their resources and finally fell. John's mother once attracted the attention of the demon ruler of heavenly radiance and destroyed the clan, earning herself a bad reputation. John would come home beaten up and hide his face. Can't leave the Tonrei family, had to endure it. He regretted not having a father. The beatings were daily. One day, Chan and several guys decided to slip him poison, promising to give him an antidote right away. The poison worked instantly, but he remained conscious and regretted his weakness. He couldn't protect himself or his mom. After some time, John felt better. He got up from the ground and saw a sword in front of him. The guy picked up the sword, not realizing that it would give him power, centuries of life, and eternal regret for his lost ordinary existence. But for now, he remains young John, who has to meet his bullies on his path every day. But this time it wasn't them beating him up. It was him beating them up. He knocked out the terror of the company with one blow. Chan. Then John headed to Moon to beat the crap out of the most arrogant blonde-haired dude. In the Hall of Hidden Poison, where the clan had once lived, important family decisions were made. At the meeting, they discussed that the number of candidates for the title of young clan head had decreased, and John is weak and being bullied. While the meeting was discussing John's exclusion from the competition for weakness, he dragged one of his bullies to the door. One of the clan elders called John a disgrace and a burden to the family, despite his father's merits. Suddenly, the door of the meeting hall burst open with a crash. John entered, throwing one of the punks in front of those present. While everyone was recovering from shock and scolding John for his audacity, he declared that he would no longer allow himself to be humiliated and beaten. He confessed that Moon and Chan had been torturing him for years, and he was just following the rule: double the good, multiply revenge by 10. After weighing all the pros and cons, the elder allowed John to participate in the competition, despite the protests of the majority. The bastard was given the right to participate, but warned of the consequences if he wasn't elected young clan head. Coming home, the son of the poisonous phoenix told his mom about what was happening and that now everything would be different. The woman was genuinely surprised how imperceptibly and quickly he had grown up. She wished her child victory. At this time, Jinhei and Moon, brother and sister, were discussing John's further intentions and actions. The great head of the Dark King clan, Huiran, pondered John's potential, analyzing his thinking, courage, and composure. Jinhei and Moon couldn't calm down about the upcoming joint training with the one they were used to bullying. John, despite his young age of 12, clearly realized the significance of the day and held himself together, understanding that there was no turning back. The son of the poisonous phoenix, feeling the growth of physical strength, decided not to rush, but to methodically strengthen his body and develop hidden potential. A few weeks later came the day of the competition for the title of young clan head, and all participants gathered at the ritual site. His mother watched John. She cried and mourned that her husband didn't live to see the moment that could change the fate of their family. Before the trials began, the participants were whispering about John, sitting aside, calm and serene, chewing a pie. Suddenly, a group of angry co-participants moved toward him, intending to force him to withdraw by force. They didn't have time to get close when one of the attackers collapsed after being hit by a pie that landed right in his head. After that, John stepped forward to meet the crowd, and a fierce fight instantly broke out between him and his co-participants. Huiran returned in the midst of the brawl and couldn't believe his eyes. Young John was throwing opponents aside. The head of the Dark King clan hurried to intervene, trying to stop the disorder before the situation got out of control. What he saw shocked him. On a pile of beaten guys, he sat without a scratch and calmly finished a second pie, causing bewilderment. The incident was immediately reported to the elder, asking him to be strict with John, but he only frowned thoughtfully, assessing the consequences of further events. Elder Tanso was alarmed by the thought that if a candidate for the title of young clan head now allows himself such things, what to expect from him in the future. One of the spectators whispered to her neighbor that a decision had been made to change the rules of the competition to contain the extraordinary strength and arrogance of the participants. Huiran came on stage and announced that the tournament would last 4 years, 2 of which would be spent on training, weapon mastery, and poison preparation. The last 2 years of training, experienced warriors will devote to the comprehensive education of young students, forming them as fighters and strategists. After training, participants will face a one-on-one duel and then a duel with goo poison, a mixture of all poisons, testing strength and agility. Previously, the winner was determined by a one-on-one duel. Now, to avoid direct competition of strength, the strongest will be the one who succeeds with goo poison. The rule change caused discontent among all participants. They became even angrier at John, seeing in him a threat and an example of unusual power. The elders' closing words that the winner would receive all the privileges of the Tonrei family pleased John and inspired his determination to go further. In the same province of Halin, the land of the Black Death Alliance, in the council hall of the Dark Moon Sword Sect camp, a tense meeting was underway. It was discussed that while the competition participants went to the camps, the Tonrei family was greatly weakened and became easily vulnerable to enemies and sect enemies. These children were the future rulers of the Tonrei clan, but did not yet pose a threat to the Dark Moon Sword sect, so ruler Killian left them alone. Several sect members were planning to stop the cart with teenagers, carefully thinking through how to eliminate them before they became dangerous. Soldier Inmak suggested tracking the cart, finding out its route, and delivering a decisive blow in 4 years, when the children would become stronger and the vulnerability would disappear. The participants arrived at the competition venue. Despite the rule changes, the procedures and schedule remained the same, and everyone was preparing for the trials. According to regulations, each participant was assigned a number instead of a name, a total of 7 groups of 4 people each, which maintained anonymity and order at the event. John lagged a little behind his group. He got number 28. Several people called him over, but he walked calmly, assessing the situation. Besides the participants, John felt the invisible presence of someone else and reported this to the chief, but he took no action, considering it a trifle. The group leader brought the participants to a massive rock, said the password, and the rock opened, revealing an opening in which a human figure appeared, causing alarm in everyone. A tall man in a light cloak with a fan in his hands greeted the guys and promised to help them throughout the competitions without exception. Chanje, that was the man's name, was a master of incarnation and a member of a family no less powerful and influential than the Tonrei clan in its sphere. When his family fell under the onslaught of the Demon Lord of Heavenly Radiance, the Tonrei came to help, and since then, they have protected the competition from attacks. Chanje led the guys along the road, showing his abilities. For example, part of nature was in spring bloom, and further on in autumn yellowed leaves. While the cart was moving along the night road to its destination, the coachman, the group leader, suggested the children get to know each other better and tell about themselves. During the introduction, the children began to remember who was related to whom and what relationship they were in, while John looked distracted and somewhat detached. At the next stop, the guys noticed that Chanja was not among them. He had disappeared somewhere, and this immediately caused alarm and bewilderment in everyone present. John and another participant decided that the man might have gotten lost in a spatial rift, and this could be related to the unusual energies around. Right there, the guys realized that they themselves were stuck in a strange place from which it was impossible to get out. The space seemed distorted and impassable. At this time, Chanje, standing on the phantom dome of the family castle, watched what was happening with the newcomers, showing no alarm but carefully assessing the situation. Here, they all gathered in one place. All that remained was to carry out the task and destroy number 28. Tension was rising. Suddenly, some crack disturbed Chanje's thoughts, and from behind the parallel curtain appeared the newcomers, who managed to get out of the trap without a spell. The group mates couldn't understand how John passed through the incarnation, and in the end the guys decided not to go far from the trainer, watching his every step. While the guys were distracted, Chanje left them again and disappeared in the incarnation, but John had the ability to see the trainer even through hidden dimensions. His sudden disappearances turned out to be part of the training. Chanje, inside his own incarnations, swiftly ran to the exit to the training grounds. Here, the trainer was met by Tanmin, the overseer of the 7th group, on whose bandage proudly flaunted the Tonrei family crest, stern and attentive. The overseer asked the trainer where the children were and who damaged the phantom dome of the 7 castles. His voice was calm but demanding. At this time, behind their backs, stood a smiling almost child, the son of the poisonous phoenix John, closely watching every movement of the adults. Tanmin greeted the guys, and Chanja couldn't believe his eyes. How could they return so quickly after such a risky trial? John harbored suspicions that there was something illegal in the trainer's actions and was internally preparing to expose the hidden truth. Appearing before the group, Tanmin explained the duties to the children and told which squad he served in, observing strict training order. Once it was the most impressive elite squad of the Tonrei clan, defeated while protecting the young lady, but remaining in the memory of legends. The competition rules included a period of independent practice, physical training, and education through writing and reading, requiring complete discipline. One of the prizes for the winner was to be a rain of 10,000 flowers, sparkling over the arena and symbolizing recognition and power. John was more eager to master the technique of controlling the sword without touching it, considering the power of control more important than external rewards. When two participants asked about rooms with amenities, they were told there were no rooms and they would have to adapt to extreme conditions. Suddenly, John declared that everything happening was an incarnation of arrogance, which means much of what was said was lies and deception for the weak. The children and trainers were stunned by the superpowers of the son of the poisonous phoenix, which manifested unexpectedly and impressively before everyone's eyes. The next test was only for number 28. The group surrounded and threw hidden weapons, testing reaction and agility to determine the winner. Despite the quantity and speed of weapons flying at John, the guy managed to deflect all attacks, demonstrating amazing coordination and control. Martial arts consist of the principles of speed, agility, sharpness of hearing and vision. In his past life, John had already learned them, so the lessons come easy to him. The trainer informed the guy that he had passed another test and noticed how confidently John applied the skills acquired in his past life. While the rest of the group were again discussing comfortable rooms, Trainer Tanman guessed which of them would prove themselves and become the winner. John supported the conversation, emphasizing that for breakfast he would like meat, and his calm determination surprised those who thought he only stayed silent on the sidelines. 4 months have passed since the guys have been living and eating in the open air. They have already learned to get food and cook it, despite the difficulties. They found themselves a place to live, a hollow in a tree. They were glad that they managed to settle comfortably and safely. One of the participants secretly admired John's perseverance. He trained incessantly, perfecting body and mind, not allowing himself a minute of weakness. Meanwhile, someone stole meat from the fire. It wasn't hard to guess that the pink-haired girl did it, and for this, she got a good kicking. In the Fortress of Incarnation, under the domes of the 7 castles, training went on around the clock. Every day was filled with struggle and improvement of skills. The trainers practiced martial arts techniques with John, tested speed, accuracy, and agility, and the guy performed everything flawlessly and with full concentration. Under the vaults of the ancient courtyard, the mentors closed the circle, directing blades at John. His body glowed, and the blows awakened hidden abilities, changing the rhythm of the battle. In the stone hall, each trainer pressed him in turn, testing the limit of reaction, and John evaded attacks instinctively. The new force inside responded faster than thought. At the top of the platform, the onslaught intensified, forcing John to fight on the edge. The air trembled with impulses, and abilities broke out of control, not obeying the usual laws. The training came to an end. The mentors stopped, recognizing the result, and John stood straight, restraining the power that became part of his new path and internal balance. The trainers were injured. It became clear that the newcomer was only by name. He fought with experienced soldiers on equal terms, breaking ideas about weakness and usual abilities. In the midst of the trials, John created the mad dance of the spinning line technique, unknown even to Tanmin, combining speed, trajectory, and flawless calculation of every movement. Interest in his knowledge became obvious. It turned out that John studied manuals on the technique of the eye, connecting theory with practice and accelerating his own growth of mastery. He confidently demonstrated complete mastery of the martial arts technique of ascension, which allowed him to throw any object in any direction without missing and without delay. Tenmin realized that John had completed the training program ahead of schedule, having managed to train many soldiers who seemed already experienced and had seen almost everything on the battlefield. In conclusion, the trainer reported that the rest of the tournament participants would soon arrive at the base, and they would have to go through the same program that tempered and prepared John. During the training in the Fortress of Incarnation under the domes of the 7 castles, John missed his classmates very much, remembering their noise, chaos, and usual jokes. Meanwhile, from the hollow came screams and mutual accusations of the girls, who ate more meat today, turning the dispute into a familiar, almost ritual ceremony. Since the separation, those who stayed to train in the wild had noticeably changed, became tougher morally, looked different externally, and confident. The group leader was troubled by their malicious mood, directed at a possible reprisal against John, which was felt in every look full of hidden danger. When the other participants finally arrived at the palace, no one met them, and the ominous silence intensified the tension and enhanced the atmosphere of waiting. After everyone passed into the courtyard, John jumped out from around the corner, barking deafeningly, reminding of himself with mocking, nimble ease and dexterity. Ikhan and the girls were confused, not understanding how to react to his cheerful mood, sudden appearance, and mysterious ability to disappear instantly. The black-haired participant noted to herself that John not only acquired skills, but noticeably prettier, grew, got stronger, and became stronger physically and spiritually. 6 months later, the group leaders gathered to discuss candidates for victory, almost unanimously highlighting participants under numbers 2 and 10, considering strategies. After that, Chanje acknowledged their strength, but in his thoughts singled out number 28, realizing that it was John who surpassed them both in talent and cunning. In training, John, son of the poisonous phoenix, demonstrated mastery, surpassing everyone around. Neither here nor in other provinces were there equal fighters. Chanje plunged into heavy thoughts, doubting whether it was too early to include John in recruitment. Each decision was given to him with painful caution of strategy. The man with the fan understood John's unique superiority, but proposed candidate number 2, counting on strengthening family ties with his nephew in case of victory. He dreamed of allying with the Tanrei dynasty, so he proposed to exclude number 28 from the tournament, considering this move tactically advantageous for his own position of influence. He voiced the idea of an alliance with Tanrei to all present, explaining the impossibility of full control over the powerful dynasty, which inspired caution and respect. He proposed to exclude the participant, but at the same time planned to eventually adopt John, directing his hidden hatred toward the Tanrei family, strengthening the intrigue. Ichan and John conducted training in the laboratory, where Ichan was a master of poisons, following every action of the student with the precision and accuracy of alchemy. When Ichan finished preparing the deadly poison, John dared to drink the entire vessel, completely swallowing it at the mentor's request, causing surprise. A few minutes passed, and John remained unharmed, ignoring the horse dose of poison, which caused fear and alarm in Ichan, amazed by the abilities of the Phoenix's student. The girls stood at the laboratory door, watching what was happening, rejoicing at the thought that John might finally face the defeat that everyone expected with excitement. John sat at the table, leaning back in his chair, and slowly drank another cup of poison, feeling how tension and danger filled the air in Halen province. Ikhan remained beside himself with anger and powerlessness, watching as his poisonous agents caused no harm to the son of the Phoenix, leaving John's body unharmed and unshakable. John's silent look spoke more than words, because from an early age he studied the secrets of the Tanrei clan, learning the mysteries of poisons and alchemical formulas, turning danger into the art of survival. Now, any poison entering John's body turned into energy capable of crushing the surroundings, making him virtually invincible among the strongest masters of the province. He understood that he could destroy the elders, but a direct clash with the head of the Black Death Alliance, Killian, remained dangerous because the enemy's strength exceeded the current capabilities of the Son of the Phoenix. Nothing personal, John thought, because Highland Province belonged not only to the Tanrei clan, but also to the Black Death Alliance, and any reckless step threatened catastrophic consequences for everyone. He could fight the genius of the alliance, but didn't have the necessary level, so his every step required careful caution, strategic calculation, and patience, turning every moment into a chess game. The desire to lead an ordinary life only strengthened his striving for perfection, because every weakness turned into strength and every experience into a weapon capable of ensuring survival and superiority. To confront the alliance leader, John needed a special poison, 10 recipes of the Tanrei family, half of which were kept secret and were lost, which made the task almost impossible and risky. Ichan was more knowledgeable about poisons, reminding that all recipes once went to the elders, turning the extraction of these deadly secrets into a trial filled with mystery and the danger of alchemy. Meanwhile, participant number 2, having swallowed the poison of the Tanrei family, which the elder treated her to, honed her strength on another enemy, feeling the tension. She did all this for the day when she would meet John in a duel and take revenge on him for the past, sparing neither strength nor time, strengthening her determination. A whole year has passed since the group of students arrived at the preparatory base. They learned a lot, and the battle to the death remained ahead, as an inevitable reality. Now came the time to choose a temporary team leader who would lead the students in a deadly duel, requiring wisdom, courage, and strategic thinking. Number 28, John, was chosen team captain almost unanimously, known for his skill, calculation, and strength, which inspired the rest and awakened respect. The temporary team captain was presented with the elixir of the Tanrei family, capable of strengthening body and spirit, created from the rare root of century-old ginseng, granting strength. The elixir was made from a decoction of century-old ginseng root, promoting increased energy, endurance, and reaction speed necessary in deadly duels for survival. Despite the value of the elixir, John asked for the 10 poisons of the Tanrei family in return, demonstrating not only intelligence, but also strategic thinking before the team, like a true tactician. A few hours earlier, the son of the poisonous phoenix had already asked Tanmin for the 10 poisons, and the trainer gave the guy what he wanted, so that the trial would be honest and without deception, preserving honor. In response to the trainer's question, John said that he needed the 10 poisons to win the competition with goo poison, all for the Tanrei family, for honor, justice, and future glory. Watching his classmates prepare for the goo poison competition, John saw their anger directed at him and decided to distribute the elixir. Months passed, and all this time John fought with each of his classmates, tirelessly, gradually strengthening his skill and endurance in training. During the competitions and rare breaks, the black-haired girl watched John. A quiet but strong love settled in her heart, imperceptible to others. One day, trainer Tanmin appeared before the team, announcing that despite everyone's efforts, John officially becomes captain starting today. The trainer noted that 3 years had passed since the beginning of training, and from tomorrow, the goo poison competitions begin, which will be a test for everyone. John had been waiting for this moment for a long time. Although he knew that using the 10 poisons was forbidden in the goo poison competition, and the trial would be extremely dangerous, he was given a chest with 10 containers where deadly poisons were stored, and instructions were attached, but John already thoroughly understood how to handle them. The whole team placed great hopes on the captain, sincerely wishing for victory and supporting him morally before the inevitable battle with poison. John promised to win if none of his classmates would interfere with him, maintaining strategy and concentration on every step. Participant number 2, having received a cooperation proposal from Mr. Chanje, couldn't understand why the Master of Incarnation so unexpectedly showed interest in her. Chanje confessed that through her he wanted to reunite with the Tanrei family to gain power and influence, while asking what she desired. Participant number 2 was fine with any conditions of cooperation as long as she could keep the chance to get even with John, not losing her personal goal in this regard. The captains of the 7 teams were called to the stage one by one, who hadn't seen each other for 3 years, but during training had changed greatly morally and physically. Seeing all his enemies in one place, John felt joy, while unable to predict which of them would lose their life today, and who would survive. Later, John went out to the open area where the duel with poisons was taking place, and with his whole gut felt the invisible surveillance, tensely straining his senses. He wasn't wrong in his guesses. Watching him through layers of incarnations was Chanje, the Master of Incarnation, hidden but attentive to the guy's every movement. The Master of Incarnation was upset that John always felt his presence, but sincerely admired the skill of sword mastery, which manifested in every strike. The team captains wandered across the open field in search of opponents to fight for the title, until one of the participants decided to surrender to the first person she met. Exhausted, she heard a voice behind her and saw the captain, covered in blood, holding a sword in one hand and 2 severed heads in the other, like a warning. With one swing of the sword, the captain cut off the head of the 3rd victim, and her last scream echoed throughout the area, making all present freeze in horror. Seeing a cave in the distance, John decided to settle in it. He wasn't running from surveillance and enemies, just postponing the moment of their destruction, preparing for battle. Secluded in the cave, the son of the poisonous phoenix sought to ascend to the level of superiority, immersing himself in meditation and internal training, ignoring the world around. John's mastery increased so much that he could independently cleanse body and mind, unlock meridians, and reflect external influences, strengthening his power. In the process of rebirth, his body underwent breaking. The flow of energy filled mind and flesh, causing pain and at the same time granting extraordinary strength which he could control. Meanwhile, the captain of one of the teams was looking for a new victim, eager to become clan head, not caring about the blood ties of tournament participants and killing everyone without mercy. The cruel and incredibly strong youngster was called Linton. He was the grandson of one of the elders, possessing strength and ambitions that even experienced fighters of neighboring clans feared. This time, his victim turned out to be stronger than the previous ones. The brave warrior was bleeding but laughed in the killer's face, demonstrating fearlessness and incredible resilience. Before killing, Linton informed the warrior that he served the Black Death Alliance, swinging his sword, but stopped, his body paralyzed by John's energy, who appeared suddenly behind his back. Coming closer, John recognized in the face of the victim Chan, who once brutally beat him, memories of pain mixed with determination to return justice and power. Linton, immobilized before his enemies, remembered how several years ago he was recruited into the alliance, promised honor and respect, and now realized the price of his actions and choices. While Chan pretended not to recognize John, who saved him from death, the son of the poisonous phoenix carefully inquired about the attacker, assessing the threat. John studied Linton and quickly identified the source of unpleasant fluids that penetrated the enemy's body, discovering a needle with poison number 28. He pulled out the poisoned needle from the motionless body, checking Linton's condition, and finally made sure that the threat had passed and breathing had stabilized. Chan realized that John had saved his life, bowed his head, and asked forgiveness from the son of the poisonous phoenix, receiving only cold indifference in response. An unexpected jump from behind John made Chan cry out, but the master instantly reacted and neutralized the attacker in a matter of seconds without the slightest mistake. A minute later, the opponent lay dead, and Chan couldn't help himself, listing the merits of the fallen, admiring John's unsurpassed mastery in handling the longsword. According to the competition rules, John could have killed Chan too. He even offered to surrender without a fight, but the guy showed mercy, opening an incarnation portal and releasing the bully. Chan left the meeting place, thanking John and wishing him good luck in the deadly duel, feeling that the debt to the master had been fulfilled. Meanwhile, in the main hall of the Muke faction, an emergency meeting was convened, discussing the death of spy Linton, who turned out to be the illegitimate son of the chief. Linton's father gave the child nothing during his lifetime, but now decided to take cruel revenge for his death, preparing terrible reprisal and new trials for all participants. Going out onto the balcony of the residence, the chief gathered everyone in the square, giving the order to go to Mount Sangon along the tracks of determination and completely exterminate the Tanrei family. Sitting by the fire, John ate the meat of caught game, thinking about how he hadn't met tournament participants for a long time, which seemed carefully arranged by Chanje, filling the atmosphere with tension. After a hearty dinner, John lay down on the grass, watching the night sky, feeling longing and boredom for his mother, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, experiencing a strange feeling of loneliness. Sleeping John was discovered by participant number 2, not recognizing in the handsome young man the son of the poisonous phoenix, but realizing that she had to carry out the order, hiding the betrayal. Having swallowed a strong pill, the girl tried to whisper a snide word to John, but didn't have time to finish before she was caught, falling into the trap of instant reaction. John's hand was lightning fast on her neck, squeezing the artery and cutting off breathing, demonstrating strength and sudden determination in the attack, inspiring fear and respect at the same time. Squeezing the carotid artery of participant number 2, John guessed that it was she who made a deal with Chanje to introduce a spy and betrayal, revealing the cunning plan of the enemy. Holding the girl in the air with one hand, John studied her disfigured face, recognizing in her Yonsu, whom he himself had once wounded in one of the battles, remembering past fights and pain. Without hiding her surprise, Yonsu also recognized John, anticipating that this time he might again inflict injuries, preparing for the inevitable fight with trepidation and determination. Watching what was happening, Chanje felt strong disappointment, realizing that his plan to introduce a spy had completely failed, destroying all calculations and causing sudden rage. At night, the army of Commander Inmak, father of the slain Linton, arrived at Mount Sangon, his forces lined up at John's cave, silently assessing the situation. And it seemed to Jinu, the commander's assistant, that for revenge on the bastard who killed his son, Inmak, a member of the Dark Moon Sword Sect, had gathered excessively many military. However, Inmak was a strategist from God. He understood that he would face not only students of the Tanrei clan, but also fighters of other factions, which is why he strengthened the army. Through the prism of incarnation, Chanje watched what was happening and eavesdropped on conversations, assessing the intensity of the situation, and after reflection decided to take action without revealing himself. Imagining that the arrivals might deal with John, the master of incarnation still chose to wait, deciding not to interfere for now and let events develop further. Meanwhile, the meeting of John and Yonsu was going hard. The girl blamed herself for late insight, and John carefully watched what she was hiding behind her back. In the unequal fight, John snatched the poison vessel from her and tried to use it against her, but Yonsu, trembling, revealed that this was a special poison of the Tanrei family. Holding the vessel, John suspected that he had found exactly the poison he was looking for, decided not to waste it on enemies, but didn't let the girl go, continuing the cruel torture. Writhing in pain, Yonsu told about the agreement with Chanje, about the promised engagement to the chosen clan head, and about the desire to elevate status through the union of families. Having drained the poison vessel in 2 gulps, John plunged into gloomy thoughts, deciding what fate to prepare for the traitor, left without hope for mercy. When the poison penetrated John's body, the hair on his head flared up, glowing with bright flame for several minutes. The grip on the girl's neck didn't weaken. She felt the power of the Lord of Poisons, realizing that the legends were not made up, and John himself experienced a strange pleasure from the unusual action of the poison. The poison spread not only through his hands, but inside arose a feeling of perfection and complete control over every movement and thought in the body. Leaving the exhausted Yonsu, John stepped aside, attracted by a strange glow in the sky, which resembled the sun, although the clock showed midnight. The feeling of danger intensified when John felt the approach of Inmak's regiment, advancing on him in a dense mass, like a black hanging cloud over the earth. Such a number of enemies at once caused John a mixture of joy and surprise, and he, believing in his own strength, went to meet the battle alone. At the same time, Chanje went to the overseer of the 7th Group Tanmin to report the penetration of Inmak's army into the competition territory. Time didn't allow asking questions. The overseer and master of incarnations immediately hurried to help the students, understanding the seriousness of the situation and the threat. However, the army managed to penetrate the center of the competitions, and now it remained only to rely on the resilience and skills of the clan students in the upcoming battle. John wasn't afraid of the number of enemies. He was more worried about who would be able to follow the trail of corpses scattered by him in the process of bloody carnage to find him. Inmak walked along the trail of blood and bodies, among which was his second spy, not suspecting the scale of destruction arranged by John, number 28. The member of the Dark Moon Sword sect lost his composure, giving the order to all his soldiers to track down every competition participant, leaving no chance for salvation or escape. He shouted that everyone who bears the Tanrei surname would pay with their life today, inspiring horror in his troops, making the hearts of fighters tremble from inevitable death. Among the dead, Inmak noticed many people with needles in their necks, poisoned with deadly poison, and understood that their murder was carefully planned and calculated. A little further away, the army of the Dark Moon Sword sect fell into a trap from which, it seemed, no one would come out alive, and the enemy advanced from different directions, leaving no hope. What happened a minute later was unimaginable. Tens of thousands of needles soaked in poison rained down from the sky, hitting everyone without exception and causing chaos among the troops. With a raise of his hand, John paralyzed the movement of Inmak's army, facilitating the destruction of enemies who fell like flies, unable to resist the deadly magic. He understood that among the fallen, there were none of those who brought the army here, as well as several of his trusted ones, and the son of the poisonous phoenix went in search of the remaining, not wasting time. In the distance, Inmak watched what was happening and listened to Jin's report, reporting the complete destruction of the eastern and western detachments, which deprived the enemy army of half its forces. Inmak assumed that if the method of killing so many people was the same, it means it was done by one person, probably from the Tanrei clan, who would continue his deadly actions. Inmak ordered the remaining soldiers to be vigilant, set up the first ambush so the chances of defeating the enemy increased, but evening was coming quickly. Darkness was thickening, and defeating the one who escaped during the day became more difficult. Tension grew. Jin, contrary to orders, gave his own commands. He ordered the soldiers to retreat, but at that moment John's voice sounded from the height of a tree. All fighters were in plain sight, every step of the enemy visible. Jin didn't have time to order to take cover when his soldiers fell dead at his feet, struck by a sudden attack. Silence and the smell of alarm stood around. Jin tried to understand who this young man was, how the technique of void absorption was mastered, and why he left him alive. The mind sought answers. Listening to Jin's incoherent words, John leisurely collected needles. The technique of mass destruction required strength and time for recovery and preparation for the next attack. Finally, Jin decided to ask about the identity of the stately stranger, but John said that the dead man doesn't need to know the killer's name, after which he dealt a devastating blow. When Changkyok, one of the 9 factions, fell before the Black Death Alliance, Jinheng joined the alliance without hesitation, anticipating new opportunities and power. On the first day, he met with the head of the alliance, who changed the technique, stunning peaks of palms, and gave a new name, Palms Shaking the Heavens. It was this technique that the son of the poisonous phoenix mastered to perfection, whose skill amazed and inspired respect, continuing the legend and strengthening the influence of the alliance. The poison Yonho was considered the most dangerous among all fire poisons because it contained the breath of the fire dragon, capable of devouring everything around. If taken under control through the aura of madness, the poison can penetrate all living things, turning the space around into a deadly field of fire. In one of the one-on-one duels, the mighty palm shaking the heavens was defeated by John, leaving all witnesses in shock and horror. The poison, turning into flame, received the name River of Poison, flame that burned everything in its path, leaving behind only smoldering coals and pain. The remnants of Inmak's army approached the competition camp, meeting John, full of energy, determination, and readiness to fight any threat. Inmak addressed the impudent youngster with a warning that today no one from this camp would leave alive, and was ready to prove his words. The member of the Dark Moon Sword sect gave the order to surround the son of the poisonous phoenix and concentrate forces on exhausting his energy and capabilities. John understood that the situation required a non-standard solution and began the mad dance of the spinning line, hiding among the whirlwind of chaos around himself. The soldiers were confused, looking around, not finding him anywhere, and gradually succumbed to panic, losing control over their discipline and fear. Suddenly, everything mixed: blood, human meat, screams, cursing, dirt. In the center of chaos appeared John, radiating deadly force that shocked Inmak. The son of the poisonous phoenix heard the threats and understood that it was useless to wave swords. It was time to act with full seriousness, using all potential. Barely touching with his palm, the swords of the attackers broke into pieces and fell to the ground with a dull clang, thus manifested his technique of destruction without mercy. Instead of the expected rain of flowers, John sent on the enemies a hail of sword fragments, blood and flesh, which flew in all directions, creating a real hellish whirlwind. In this deadly whirlwind, the martial arts master himself remained dirty but unharmed, and John even enjoyed the spectacle of chaos created by his hands. After exterminating all of Inmak's subordinates, the son of the poisonous phoenix challenged one of the members of the Dark Moon Sword sect to a duel, preparing for a one-on-one fight. Inmak entered the battle fearlessly, counting on his silent sword technique, hoping that it could save his life against this young monster. The dance of paired blades, the technique of the silent sword, calculation of the opponent's subsequent actions, everything was used by the two titans in an unequal fight. Inmak tried to buy time, telling John about Jinheng, the Death Alliance, and his skills, while the guy watched with admiration this arrogant old man. But when John's patience ran out, he demonstrated to the old man his long blade technique, showing the capabilities he had achieved by his 16 years, impressing the opponent. Not watching the fight to the end, the old man began to retreat, realizing that John had reached the final stage of teaching and mastery, exceeding all expectations and calculations. John lazily watched the old man in the forest, not wanting to chase, and threw shurikens at him, which cut trees in flight, leaving the air in cracks. The flying shurikens shredded everything, not sparing human flesh, and the elder, having already lost his arm, continued to resist, as if not noticing the pain. When John approached, the shurikens went crazy, rose from the ground, and simultaneously headed toward Inmak, leaving the old man lifeless and wounded, fallen in the grass. Surveying the battlefield, John felt satisfaction, having warmed up and tested all techniques in action, as if testing his own boundaries of strength and control. Meanwhile, Chanje with Tanmin and participants of Group 7 stood at the entrance to the competition zone, not daring to enter, mentally saying goodbye to number 28. From the gorge to the rocks stretched warm light, familiar energy filled the space, and John appeared before them whole, unharmed, like a living legend among the stones. The only one who wasn't happy about the return of participant number 28 remained the man with the fan, hiding discontent under a cold mask of calm. To get out of the competition zone, John cut through the phantom dome of the seven castles, and even the master of incarnations couldn't understand how this was possible, amazed by the mastery. Looking at Chanje, John felt the desire to finish him off on the spot, but restrained himself, deciding to wait for the moment when he would become clan captain and get the legal right to punishment. Tanmin and the guys begged to tell what happened inside, watching John, whose aura of confidence and strength filled the space, leaving questions and alarm at the same time. During John's story, the earth suddenly shook, the air filled with a crack, and all present felt the force shaking the space around. From the rift that arose in the rock, bright light broke through, illuminating the space around, and all eyes involuntarily turned to this strange phenomenon. Before the eyes of those gathered, the phantom dome of the seven castles began to collapse, crumbling to pieces, as if the illusion couldn't withstand the power of the moment. Due to the anomalous destruction, the real picture of the competition zone opened before everyone, on which Tanmin noticed victims, among whom was Old Man Inmak. Realizing whose deeds these were, the groupmates experienced conflicting feelings. Internal indignation was replaced by humility, while they tried to understand John's role. Moon stood in the line of participants and watched the jubilation, not understanding where John acquired such power, but the desire to find out the truth burned in his eyes. Tanmin carefully assessed the situation, declared the competition completed, and announced John the winner, causing quiet but tense approval of the warriors around. The warriors lined up before John, greeted the new head and pledged their loyalty to him, submitting to the strength and authority that he suddenly manifested. After the oath, the classmates were confused, not knowing how to behave now with the one they previously despised, the feeling of alarm and respect mixed inside. John addressed the people, assuring everyone that he wouldn't disappoint expectations, reminding that the main thing was faith in him, and this word strengthened his new status as leader. The warriors recognized John as the true ruler of the Tanrei family, after which all followed him to the estate, feeling both pride and tension. After the departure of representatives of the Tanrei clan, supporters of one of the factions arrived on the battlefield to assess the scale of destruction and understand the consequences of the clash. What they saw impressed and frightened. Destroyed fortifications, corpses on the ground, and scattered weapons spoke of the cruelty of the battle. Now the subjects will have to clear the area of bodies, otherwise the smell of decomposition will quickly spread, making staying here dangerous and unbearable. The elder of the estate was informed that the competition participants were returning ahead of schedule. He asked about his granddaughter Yonsu, receiving an alarming answer. She was not among the returned, An alarm enveloped the elder's heart, while John with warriors and Group 7 stepped onto the palace courtyard, feeling expectation and responsibility. They were joyfully met by a crowd of local residents, officials, and servants, among whom mixed emotions were heard: surprise, crying, laughter, and joyful exclamations. The return was incomplete, and this mixture of happiness and loss hung in the air, forcing John to focus on one question: how would his mom meet him? Approaching the general's staff, a classmate with pink hair showed John her father and asked the clan captain to appoint him to an important position. John appreciated the friend's directness and determination, her striving for justice, and desire to establish friendly relations with management, which evoked respect and trust in him. John realized that he was obliged to arrange not only his friend's dad, but also the other two participants, Egan and Mirta, so that each would get a worthy place in life. Kisam, commander of the general staff, expressed gratitude to the warriors for their service, noting their devotion and diligence, emphasizing the importance of Tanrei family ties. Gratitude for service to the Tanrei family was also received by Tanje, which strengthened respect for him, but also intensified internal tension before upcoming events. Tanrei and the warriors refused to go to the House of Elders, citing competition rules that required presence in the Hall of Secret Weapons and Poisons. Commander Kisam didn't accept objections from the commander, threatening disbandment for insubordination, thereby intensifying tension among those present. Standing up in defense of the team commander, John smirked, challenging Kaisam to think about the consequences of his decision, leaving the commander in complete ignorance. Seeing incomprehension in Kisam's eyes, John introduced himself as the winner of the competition, causing instant shock and confusion in the commander, which was hard to hide. On half-bent legs, overwhelmed with excitement and fear, Kisam hurried to the House of Elders to report the winner's name, causing a storm among the elders. Elder Tanso refused to believe the news because the Yonho poison given to granddaughter Yonsu should have guaranteed her victory, and the news about John destroyed his expectations. Turmoil reigned in the House of Elders. No one believed in John's victory. Everyone demanded explanations from this young brat, eager to figure it out. Chanji clearly understood that if John from the first days imposed his will, rejected orders, and harbored anger toward the elders, then the Master of Incarnations wouldn't survive. With these thoughts, Chanji faced the new clan head, who ordered to tell the elders that their power was exhausted, and the son of the poisonous phoenix was going to the Hall of Hidden Weapons. The elders flared up with anger, hearing Chanji's report, but obeyed, counting that in the Hall of Hidden Weapons and Poisons, they would be able to bypass the impudent youngster. By their decision, all squads of the best fighters followed them there, whose presence should hold the fragile order and contain a possible coup. When everyone gathered in the Hall of Hidden Weapons and Poisons, the meeting dragged on until midnight, and each doubter brought arguments of John's weakness, meeting the facts of his team. To almost each of those present, John kept an unspoken grudge for the humiliation of him and his mother, and now he reminded them of the days for which they would have to answer. The origins of enmity went back to the moment when the Demon Lord fell in love with Lady Phoenix, and their union and the birth of a child were not recognized by the Tanrei family. Equal forces came together in a bloody battle. Losses were countless, but the war ended, and after it the elders placed all blame on John's mother. On the day of John's recognition as head of the Tanrei clan, warriors of the elders' squads, who had previously humiliated Lady Phoenix, gathered in the courtyard, deciding to pledge allegiance to her son. Remaining in the hall, John and Moon, who was part of the circle of counselors, heard furious screams outside the windows and headed to the courtyard, where a new decision was brewing. The third elder showed open hostility, raised his voice at John, deliberately ignoring his merits to the state, demanding recognition through the House of Elders. He insisted that the one who didn't come for approval, the council wouldn't recognize as clan head, considering such a path an insult to the foundations and a direct violation of the order of power. John maintained cold superiority, believing that he didn't need approval because he had already proven his own strength in battle, where the outcome was decided not by words, but by blood. The elder didn't calm down and presented Chanji's report, who worked for him, where the Masters of Reincarnation claimed illegal invasion of Inmak with an army on the lands of the competitions. John objected, guessing the reason for the dispute, because the old man was trying to prove rule violations, questioning the killings and denying that John was their source. The young, not yet recognized clan head spoke down to the elders, advising the most impudent to descend into the valley of competitions and look at the bodies before they were removed. He claimed that there it would become clear that everyone was killed by one person, and this confidence finally drove the elders out of themselves, forcing them to raise a wave of indignation. Patience snapped. The elders began to scan death to the youngster, and their exclamations were picked up by a fourth of the crowd, intensifying tension and pushing everyone to a showdown. To make sure personally, those gathered went to the Valley of Competitions, where part of the corpses still lay untouched, not removed by representatives of one of the clans. There, John presented the vessel with Yonho poison, illegally transferred to the elder's granddaughter, and the flash of fire energy without harm became proof that decided the fate of the elders. The son of the poisonous phoenix coldly accused the third elder of appropriating clan property, pointing out that treasury resources had long served his personal interests. During the proceedings, the commander of the 7th group Tanmin spoke up, reminding that the 10 poisons of the Tanrei family were under the elders' control and the lost recipe made them part of the emergency reserve. John, not putting in personal feelings, only reproduced the line of the law on wastefulness, where it is clearly stated that such a crime is punishable by inevitable death penalty. This was a rare case when neither rank nor wealth could be a defense, and the law itself rose above any merits and previous agreements. The old man in confusion already saw himself embraced by the flame of someone else's skill, but understood that avoiding the sentence was impossible because the established order knows no exceptions. The unrecognized clan head rose and announced to all present the end of the elders' rule, stating that the former system no longer had force. John supplemented what was said, emphasizing that from now on, there were no elders or commanders above him, and all decisions in the state would be made only by him. These words shocked the military, because they clearly realized that they had witnessed a coup capable of forever changing the balance of power in the Tanrei clan. One of the elders broke the heavy silence, calling to immediately stop the coup and eliminate the impudent boy by any means acceptable in their struggle. At this moment, Chan came out of the crowd, who witnessed Linton's attack, and John confirmed the penetration of the Dark Moon Sword sect within Mac. At this moment, the elder tried to drive the accusations into a dead end, insisting that words without evidence were empty, and counted on extinguishing doubts with one statement. Chan calmly removed his outer clothing, exposing scars received in battle with Linton. Such wounds were left only by a special blade and the technique of paired blades. He pointed out that the elder's grandson possessed exactly this art, and the coincidence became too obvious to be written off as accident or fiction. From the crowd suddenly came a cry. A stocky fighter declared that from afar he watched that battle and saw how Linton used forbidden techniques. Chan added that before the murder attempt, Linton confessed to espionage on the order of a high-ranking grandfather, but John arrived in time and destroyed him. John expressed gratitude to Chan for the decisive testimony, and the balance in the hall changed, depriving the elders of their former confidence and power over the situation. The third elder, feeling the approach of the end, gave the order to fighters to seize John, but no one moved, and the silence became heavier than threats. John came closer and called on the elder not to disgrace himself in old age, because such a number of pieces of evidence was already impossible to hide or distort. The crowd buzzed, accusing the elder that his rash steps almost gave a member of the Tanrei family into the hands of the Dark Moon Sword sect. Taking pity on the old man, John limited himself to punishment, depriving him of the right to practice martial arts and cut off his right hand, not knowing about the hidden poison vessel. The third elder gave half his life to creating this poison. The composition of the potion was so deadly that even John would be considered doomed at the slightest mistake. At that moment, the son of the poisonous phoenix read the thoughts of the old official and directed energy into his left hand, causing the poison vessel to slip out and shatter before everyone's eyes. John came close to the elder, and only then did the old man feel real fear of the youngster. Repentance didn't save him. The death sentence was carried out. Everyone present saw the execution. The new clan head, whose superiority no one else dared to dispute, made it clear that such a fate awaits every enemy of the family. John clearly identified the threat from the Death Alliance, the demonic cult, the Dark King clan, and the Dark Moon Sword sect, vowing not to allow the death of the Tanrei family. The son of the poisonous phoenix didn't wait for general consent and finally declared himself the new head of the Tanrei clan, thereby wordlessly affirming his complete supremacy. At this time, Lady Phoenix sincerely rejoiced at her son's return, his victory, and the heights achieved, seeing in him the embodiment of strength and the future of their lineage. John wanted to return home immediately, but the new status required responsibility. In the Hall of Hidden Weapons and Poisons, he convened his first official meeting. After announcing the charter, the fifth elder suggested the new head hire an assistant due to inexperience in management matters, and John accepted this proposal without hesitation. In addition to charter changes, officials under his leadership transferred all 10 poisons for storage to the Hall of Hidden Weapons and Poisons, strengthening the power of the new head. John saw no value in the squads of direct subordination to the elders, so the new head kept their posts, not changing the structure so as not to waste energy on unnecessary reshuffles. From this day, the maintenance of personal armies fell on the shoulders of the elders. John made it clear that the treasury would no longer be a source for empty and dubious expenses. The elders refused to pay for their own squads, so they were reduced into a single formation, called Heron, and subordinated to the Hall of Hidden Weapons and Poisons. As a result, military salaries equalized, ranks were lowered, privileges disappeared, service became common, and to all dissatisfied, John offered to voluntarily leave their places. A few days later, John summoned Chanjae and his associates, surprising them with his restraint, appearance, and speech, after which he demanded to install the protection of 7 domes over the hall. When dull discontent rose among the masters, John calmly explained that such protection was necessary to preserve an important object from outside interference. Clothes, posture, and power changed John. Now they didn't see in him the son of fallen people. He was perceived as the head, with whom they spoke carefully and with respect. Chanjae was especially embarrassed, but he decided to object, reminding that he had no right to change the Phantom Dome without the consent of the clan head to whom it belonged. He added that to create new protection, lost artifacts and masters were needed, who were no longer there, trying as convincingly as possible to hide the truth behind words. At that moment, John's patience ran out. Destructive energy poured from him, squeezing Chanjae's head and body, making both lies and attempts to tell the truth impossible. John approached the Master of Incarnations, telling about all his intrigues and conspiracies against the Tonrei family. The clan had promised to forgive if the protective dome was installed in the hall. Chanjae tried to object, but John threatened to visit the head of his clan Shanin, describing in detail the master's tricks, leaving the opponent no chance to refuse. The desire to kill Chanjae for betrayal tormented John, like the third elder, but the Master of Incarnations was needed to create the Phantom Dome, without which plans collapsed. Chanjae quickly agreed to contact management and organize the installation of an additional dome. The master only asked not to touch his family, and agreement was reached. John invited 3 classmates to see him, Mirta, Ingan, and the pink-haired girl, whose father he had recently appointed Commander-in-Chief Yuri. At first, the guys behaved officially and seriously, not showing their usual childish ease, but John reminded that they were friends and could be free alone with him. Having settled in, John addressed Ingan and Mirta, saying that he was looking for suitable positions in the staff for them, wanting to support those who didn't have high-ranking connections. However, John was struck by Ingan's sincerity, who couldn't hide that he came from the King of Medicine clan, and honestly admitted kinship with an influential family. Lowering his head, Ingan told about how he recently accidentally overheard a conversation of relatives, where they recalled how they poisoned John's father, the demon ruler of heavenly radiance. The rumors shocked all present. The pink-haired girl almost attacked Ingan for hiding kinship with the murderers. Tension hung in the air. The estate of the King of Medicine clan was hidden deep, and even the elders rarely stepped there. Here trials were conducted, and deadly poisons were created. Secret developments. The pharmaceutical organization existed completely autonomously. The treasury wasn't spent on its needs. Income was formed exclusively from own sales and rare purchases. Ingan recalled that it was the King of Medicine clan that helped the Tonrei clan withstand the attack of the demon ruler of heavenly radiance, known as the Poisonous Phoenix. Ingan's grandfather held one of the previous heads of the clan, and during his reign the Poisonous Phoenix often visited them, spreading rumors about the current Lady Phoenix. Once the Phoenix heard how Light was spreading gossip about his son's mother, and, deprived of the strength for reprisal, complained to Ingan's grandfather, hoping for justice. For such actions, Light was removed from his position, harbored resentment, and soon poisoned the Poisonous Phoenix and staged sabotage throughout the clan, sowing chaos and fear. Mirta couldn't hide her surprise, and Ingan continued, telling that after these events, grandfather went crazy, plunging into strange rituals and forgotten knowledge. In the Palace of the Fire Sun, on the clan's territory, was the Pearl of the Fire Carp, an artifact that enhanced internal strength, hidden from prying eyes for centuries. According to legend, 100 years ago, a young girl became the head of the palace, seized the pearl, and gained incredible power, which was now kept as a secret of the King of Medicine clan. Light's main goal was clear: to find the pearl, seize its power, leave the clan and create his own sect, beginning the path to power and legendary independence. Having listened to the story, John banged his fist on the table, resolutely telling the guys that he wouldn't allow such mutiny and betrayal in his ranks. He thanked Ingan for his frankness and carefully inquired whether the King of Medicine clan could function in the former rhythm after he took revenge for his father's death. The guy wiped away tears, clenching his fists tightly, and confidently answered that the clan would continue to exist without changes, despite the tragedy and John's approaching vengeance. John rose from the table, apologizing to Mirta that today he wouldn't have time to discuss her future, and reported that he was beginning the act of vengeance for his father's death. Without delay, the head of the Tonrei clan headed to the estate of the head of the King of Medicine clan, paying no attention to the fact that he still hadn't seen his mother. In the King of Medicine clan, they already knew who had taken the place of head of the Tonrei clan, and Ingan's disappearance troubled them, but faith in the power of the pearl gave comfort and hope. Into the gloomy room of the master burst a servant and reported that the very head of the Tonrei clan had come to visit, causing tension and trembling in the hearts of those present. John didn't come alone, but with a whole legion of troops. Soldiers grabbed everyone and inquired about the whereabouts of Ingun's grandfather, leaving no one the opportunity to evade. At first, the servants and residents tried to deny, bought time, hiding the family secret, but resistance was futile before John's determination and his army. Among them was found a traitor, to whom his own skin was dearer. He confessed that the madman was being kept in the dungeon for several years already, after which John went there and ordered the legion commander to wait at the entrance. The dungeon was located in the far corner of the cave, where dampness and darkness reigned, and there was nothing around that could distract attention. Having walked several kilometers through narrow corridors, Ingun finally saw his grandfather, lying on the cold ground in exhaustion and painful powerlessness. Between grandson and patient stood a massive cast iron grate at the entrance, blocking the way, but John asked Ingun to step aside and with one movement of his palm neutralized the barrier. The guy felt alarm. Seeing the old man in a deplorable state, confusion overcame him, but John comforted Ingun, promising to help and return life to the patient. Placing his palm on grandfather's heart, John stated that the old man's body contained poisonous madness, slowly destroying his mind and will. John understood that if he absorbed the poison contained in the patient's body, he could partially restore his health, sharing the pain but preserving life. After the ritual of poison absorption, John and Ingun noticed that the old man gradually came to himself, his gaze became clear, and he recognized his grandson standing nearby. Opening his eyes completely, the old man immediately recognized his savior, who turned out to be the young head of the Tonrei clan, whose power had a magical effect. In just 5 minutes, the old man's strength was completely renewed thanks to John's magic. The patient was in his right mind, attentive to what was happening, and remembered everything he had missed. Ingun's grandfather sincerely rejoiced, finally seeing the young head of the Tonrei clan, son of the one toward whom he once was cautious, but now felt deep respect. When they had talked enough, Ingun and John were taking the patient from the dungeon. Grandfather unexpectedly expressed a desire to serve for the benefit of the Tonrei clan. At the exit, they were met by a legion of soldiers, who meanwhile mercilessly destroyed all the fake healers, leaving only empty corridors. Seeing what was happening, the slug light tried to flee, but struck by the poison hearts of flame, he couldn't move from his place, frozen in horror. Leading grandfather from the King of Medicine clan, John ordered the legion to eliminate all remaining, removing any threats and resistance. Leaving the King of Medicine clan forever, the old man took with him an artifact, the fire carp, shining with mystical light, like living flame. When the pearl went to John, he felt an unprecedented feeling that he had never experienced before, awakening something deep inside. This evening, John, finally, after 4 years of absence, returned home, carefully opening the door and calling Mom with alarm and hope. The meeting of mother and son was joyful, touching, and long-awaited. Lady Phoenix couldn't believe her eyes, seeing how her son had changed. The Legion helped the lady with moving to the Hall of Hidden Weapons and Poisons, and with the assistance of her son Phoenix returned to her rightful place of residence. When Mom settled in one of the hall's rooms, John presented her with the pearl of the 1,000-year-old fire carp, a symbol of strength and new life. The lady didn't know how to handle this artifact, but reverently accepted the gift presented by her son, feeling a strange anticipation. The pearl, finding itself in the mother's hands, instantly transformed Lady Phoenix, filling her with the power of perfection and a sense of internal harmony. After absorbing the pearl, Phoenix felt that she could catch the slightest movements of energy, as if nature itself had opened its secrets to her. The poisonous Phoenix now had to not only extract all the power of the pearl, but also subjugate it to herself, controlling energy with absolute precision. Watching his mother that evening, John realized that she was worthy of becoming regent and decided to appoint her to this responsible position tomorrow. After the ceremony, proclaiming her regent, Lady Phoenix secluded herself with her son and began to inquire about his incredible successes in knowledge, not believing her eyes. John didn't reveal the secret of his past life, explaining his achievements exclusively by the influence of the 10th poison, preserving his mother's peace of mind and reason. The King of Medicine clan was completely destroyed, and in its place arose the Temple of Medicine, which Intan headed together with grandfather, strengthening new traditions. The new commander of the general staff, father of pink-haired Uni, was instructed to conduct a thorough audit of the income and expenses of the Tonrei clan to restore justice. Keeping accounts before the electorate, Lady Phoenix weekly reported who was deprived of their position for betrayal and how much each appropriated from the treasury before her rise to power. John increasingly went into seclusion, reflecting on how radically his life had changed after the competitions, about the friends and relatives who surrounded him. The head of the Black Death Alliance, Killian, received information about the Tonrei clan, learned who became its new head, and tried to predict what would happen next. One day, Soraya, head of the Simora squad, came to Killian with a proposal to completely destroy the Tonrei family, fearing their future strength and possible attack. "Don't you dare touch the head of the Tonrei clan and all her family," Killian repeated irritably, trying to restrain his anger and simultaneously think through a strategy of action. Wanting to get acquainted with John, Killian sent messengers to him with an invitation to the upcoming Council of Highland Province, trying to strengthen his positions. In one of the conversations, the lady told her son about the family ancestor, about the master of the vein sealing technique, who left behind knowledge and power. During the plague and universal pestilence in one village, only one 10-year-old boy didn't get sick, whom the frightened residents expelled, not understanding the reason for his survival. Time passed, and the boy was kidnapped by representatives of the Shadowgates of the Poisonous Moon sect, stealing children around the world, whom they fed poison and raised for murder. As he grew up, the adoptee understood that the plague on the village was sent by those who kidnapped him in childhood. He killed all the kidnappers and freed himself from imposed murders. Lady Phoenix revealed that the family ancestor learned the power of controlling protective armor energy, which allowed deflecting any attack and protecting the family heirs from threats. John realized that the energy of protective armor exceeded all the techniques he possessed, multiplying his combat power and endurance many times over. The vein sealing method required concentration of internal energy flowing through the body's meridians in one of the 12 main channels. A master who mastered this armor remained alive even in the most severe battles, filling with energy circulating through all meridians. Releasing it outward, the master temporarily received tenfold strength, applying the rain of 10,000 flowers, completely removing the seal from the body. In the Tonrei family, before the attack of the demons of Northern Radiance, numerous techniques and ancient legends were stored, most of which were lost in battle. But the lady knew that John was the only one in the family capable of fully mastering the mystical rain of 10,000 flowers and using its power. During his reflections, there was a knock on the residence of the clan head. He invited them to enter, and Myrta ran in, screaming for help. Her sister is dying. Myrta, sobbing, told about her sister's diagnosis, with which medicine couldn't cope. The defeat of 9 meridians completely deprived her of strength. Not far from the estate of the Tonrei clan was a martial arts sect that struck meridians, the ice palace of the Northern Sea, storing dangerous techniques. The sect's warriors honed their mastery, fighting with giant ice blocks, turning the fight with them into a real test of strength and endurance. Myrta and her sister turned out to be descendants of the ancient martial sect of the Ice Palace. The sister's illness was hereditary, incurable, but Myrta brought John home. The sister lay lifelessly on the bed. Her face was blue from the cold, her breathing weak, as if every cell was fighting for life. John assessed the situation and understood that his strength was limited, but fear didn't stop his determination. He was ready to try, despite the risk of his own death. Myrta's sister was freezing, trying with all her might to warm the blood. The last strength was leaving her body, and breathing became more and more difficult and intermittent. John proposed a method, artificially extract the cold from the girl's body, but for this, the girl needed to be undressed, knowing that the outcome was unknown and someone could die in the process. Myrta stood before an impossible choice, but her sister was all she had left, and John agreed to risk for her sake, despite the danger. He moved his palms over the icy body, gradually freezing himself. Each movement took heat from him, and breathing became difficult and intermittent. When the cold reached his bones, John understood that if he continued, he would die from hypothermia. At this moment, he realized this cold is poison, which means there's an antidote. The antidote was poison absorption, in which John was experienced. Holding his palm on the sister's body, he felt how warmth gradually returned to her frozen cells. Suddenly, the girl opened her eyes. Her voice broke into a scream full of shame, surprise, and unexpectedness, and warm energy filled the room, like the birth of new hope. The girl came to herself, recognizing her sister, and memory returned along with the soft warmth that spread through her body, as if a long sleep had retreated, leaving clarity and peace. Myrta carefully introduced Savior John, imperceptibly weaving his name into their destiny, like a thread that connected past and present, not requiring words and explanations. When John was visiting Myrta and her sister, fate brought him together with their father, and this meeting became a quiet knot that sealed trust and respect between them. The old man thanked the young head of the Tonrei clan, bowing with sincere gratitude, promising to serve him faithfully and honestly, accepting his will as his own. The family of 3 saw off the head of the Tonrei clan to the gate and noticed that the warmth touched not only the patient, the snow around disappeared without a trace. After John's departure, Myrta's younger sister suddenly realized a new feeling. Her heart responded quietly and clearly, opening to her the first timid infatuation. John himself also felt a strange excitement inside, previously unfamiliar to him, a bright feeling from books, born without doubts and hidden expectations. Imperceptibly to himself, the young head of the Tanrei clan began to indulge in dreams. In his imagination arose a wedding with the beauty of the alliance and future children. Since the alliance spies invaded the lands of the competitions, John lost peace, and the desire for payback with the head grew stronger with each day. In the residence of the Black Death Alliance, a secret meeting was underway, where Soraya, remembering the Council of Hylin Province, vowed to destroy the Tanrei clan. Having become regent, Lady Phoenix changed the balance of power. The position of Moon and his uncle, one of the elders, sharply worsened. They decided to leave the Tanrei clan. Understanding that leaving required preparation, John headed to the storage of the clan's 10 poisons. This place was considered forbidden, but now there was no other way for him. Walking through the warehouse with poisonous substance, John clearly realized the mortal danger of this place. For an ordinary person, such a stay would end in instant death. Suddenly, he felt near the incarnations of sorcerers and noticed ahead a long corridor. Several of them John vaguely remembered from his past life. Brief confusion was replaced by burning curiosity, which prevailed over caution. John took a step forward and entered the portal leading deep into the corridor. On the other side of the portal, the lost artifact was revealed to him, the 10th of the 10 poisons of the Tanrei family. Its existence was considered a myth, forgotten even by the elders. John reached for the jug, but the incarnation binding the vessel turned out to be too powerful. It was clear that the seal could only be destroyed carefully, layer by layer. The young head of the Tanrei clan methodically cut through the incarnation and tore off talismans from the 10th poison. When he got to the vessel's lid, there was almost no time left. At the moment when John tried to open the vessel, an explosion of unimaginable force occurred. The shockwave threw him to the far end of the hall, depriving him of support under his feet. The son of the poisonous phoenix suddenly felt his body constrained by something living and heavy. Around him coiled the 10th of the 10 poisons, Jingo, like a huge snake. The poison snake briefly slid over John's body, threatening reprisal, but the clan head firmly squeezed the throat, preparing to absorb the poison, realizing the risk and price of the decision. The poison warned that absorption could destroy John forever, and therefore a deal was made between them, where strength was exchanged for freedom and fate. John had to remove the ancient seals, and in return, the snake became a guardian spirit, accepting a new form of existence next to the master, not leaving him. The poison promised to remain with John invisibly, to follow him everywhere, feeding him at the decisive moment when body and will would be at the limit, protecting the master. Meanwhile, the guards anxiously waited. The master was too long not coming out of the warehouse, and suddenly from inside poured bright, blinding, and frightening light. In the doorway appeared John. His body was enveloped by a blinding halo, forcing the guards to bow their heads and hold their breath, feeling the incomprehensible force inside him. With the appearance of the 10th poison, all 12 meridians filled, energy closed into a single system, making his strength whole, stable, without the former gaps and weak spots. The glow became constant. Passers-by first questioned the young head of the Tanrei clan, and then only silently observed, tiring him with attention and giving no peace. One day, John addressed the 10th poison about the jug and learned that the seal was imposed by his father at the request of the boy who survived the plague, the former owner of power, who left a trace. Reflections were interrupted by a servant with a report. One of the estates of Hylene was attacked by strangers who violated the Alliance lands and staged lawlessness without reason, causing alarm. John, with several legionnaires, came in time to help the inhabitants of the Black Death Alliance. The sect of evil was already ravaging the lands, sowing fear and leaving behind a bloody trail. John without hesitation went out to meet a whole cavalry of the evil sect, ignoring the alarm of allies. The doubts of the Alliance inhabitants dissipated when he accepted the battle in complete solitude. Hundreds of soldiers were destroyed in one instant by precise throwing of poisonous needles. The battle ended so quickly that the dust hadn't yet settled on the torn earth. After the battle, one of the residents of the Alliance province invited John to his home. There, he told the story of an old meeting that changed his attitude toward the Alliance's power. Once in a tavern, the head of the Alliance approached him and inquired about the reason for the visit. The conversation quickly became heavy, filled with hints, pressure, and hidden threats. The tension between them grew into a fierce fight that knew no concessions. The fight showed the true essence of the head of the Black Death Alliance without embellishment. The interlocutor described him as a terrifying and vile person, devoid of mercy. Any detail about the one who sent the invitation was important to the son of the poisonous phoenix. In an equal battle, the head of the Alliance opened the divine technique of submission. His power manifested suddenly, breaking the usual laws of confrontation. The young head of the Tonrei clan learned about the enemy's ability to distort others' techniques. He undermined each influence for himself, turning the threat into a source of strength. In conclusion of the story, the resident of the Alliance addressed the young head of the Tonrei clan with a request. He asked to join their sect. The cult of the Demon of Heaven was a religious military force rooted in Xinjiang. In former years, its power allowed it to eclipse sects, clans, and scattered factions. With Yen's arrival, the structure underwent a deep rebirth and changed direction. New followers rallied around him, forming the cult of Demons of Heavenly Radiance. However, all reasoning paled before John's interlocutor's main fear. The advance of the Death Alliance to the north promised massive losses and destruction. Particularly striking was the refusal of the young head of the Tonrei clan to support the resistance. The decision was made without advice from his mother, which intensified tension between the parties. While waiting for John's answer, sect members studied the path to the Tonrei residence. The developed infrastructure and training of warriors clearly indicated stable prosperity. A few hours later, the guests were invited to a council in the Hall of Hidden Weapons and Poison. There they were met by Lady Phoenix, along with the closest and trusted associates. Lady Phoenix knew the reason for the visit and her son's position. She asked John to restate the arguments for refusal so that everyone would hear them. John explained that war with the Black Death Alliance wasn't profitable for the Tonrei clan. The head of the alliance didn't oppress the people, and this, in his opinion, spoke for itself. Summing up, John reminded of the events of past years. Then the Black Death Alliance and the Demons of Heavenly Radiance attacked Tonrei with impunity. The justice of the reasoning of the son of the poisonous phoenix proved indisputable. The sect members drooped, realizing their mistake, and repented of the tactlessness shown.